So, hello friends, I'm Dr. Mukesh Shete, and I'm going to talk to you about setting up a successful nephrology practice. So, first and foremost, just I'm asking these questions and you can repeat in your mind. Are Indian doctors happy? And you'll be shocked to know that a survey conducted by Forbes revealed that only 6% doctors are happy. Another survey done by an Indian medical group showed that more than 65% of Indian doctors are not happy, and over 61% doctors would not want their children to join this profession. So when you go through that title, a successful practice, I probably would redefine this as success is nothing but defined in units of fun. It's all about being happy. And that was a verdict by Jack Nickel from Threadless. In fact, you need three skill sets to be a happy doctor. And unfortunately, medical school only teaches one of the three, and that is your technical skill. But you don't learn the human skill as well as the business skill. And maybe that is the reason there is unhappiness as you march through the phases of practice in your life. And maybe some tips to get over these two shortcomings of human skills and business skills in coming few slides. Let's see the world scenario about the nephrologist. And on the left hand side, what you're able to see is the number of nephrologists per million population. And India just has zero point 0.7 nephrologists per million population. And like us, we have Vietnam, Sudan, Nigeria, mainly the East Africa, where the nephrologists are quite few in number and the population is large. And someone studied the Indian nephrology market, where the current market is something like 93.6 US billion dollars. As we march ahead, maybe by 2027, it might grow up to 102.7 million US dollars. If you now extrapolate this figure to the available nephrologists, that means each nephrologist can comfortably earn around 50 lakh rupees per annum if this is the growing market. And in fact, more than that, as I would probably show you the methods by which you can diversify and even more amount than what you're earning through your nephrology practice. So naturally, it shows that there's a huge demand and less supply. So if these are the figures, and it shows that the number of nephrologists needed in India are much higher than what is supplied. Why do we see this picture where at times we see one patient pounced by five nephrologists? And this is mainly seen in urban area where you have too many nephrologists in one suburb, and there are only handful of patients roaming around in that particular area. So this aspect was very well studied in the South Africa, and this was a study by Mohammed Hussain, who had published this article, Human Resources for Nephrology in South Africa, a mixed method study. And there were a couple of nephrologists who participated, and the bulk of the workforce, almost 128 nephrologists, that is 92% than the available, they were distributed in three of the nine South African provinces. And only two provinces, in fact, were such that they have no nephrologists at all. That is, you probably have a lot of nephrologists in one particular known zone. These are the areas where there are more teaching hospitals. These are the areas where there are more residential areas where nephrologists are passing out. And most of them would like to practice in and around their vicinity. And that is creating a huge maldistribution. So even in Mumbai, there are a lot of nephrologists. But as you go away from Mumbai, there is no single nephrologist in areas which are the peripheral areas of Mumbai, nor between Mumbai and Nashik, nor between Mumbai and Pune. So if you just see the distribution, they are mainly in the main suburb, but in the peripheral areas there are less nephrologists. So that is the concept of maldistribution of nephrologists. Now, when the survey incorporated many other headings, and they found that 39% versus 15% had unsatisfactory work conditions, and they were observed among nephrologists working in the public sector compared to the private sector. So, of course, public sector is a great area for developing your own nephrology skill. In fact, the academic atmosphere is always more with public sector than private sector. But yes, there are shortcomings. The supply of equipments and the infrastructural development probably are not up to the mark, and that's why probably we saw more unsatisfactory nephrologists in the public sector as compared to private sector. And the final conclusion of the study was there's an overall shortage of nephrologists, poor career planning amongst nephrologists, a need for changes to nephrologist training. There may be a little more uh, changes needed, for the nephrologists to be more confident, more comfortable in their practice pattern. Excessive workloads were again seen with some of them, with simultaneous inadequate remuneration, and that is again creating dissatisfaction. And there is challenging work environments. So these are the situations which probably are prevailing, and maybe you have to go through till you come out as a private practitioner, and then modify yourself in order to fit into this rigmarole and yet be successful. So this was again a study done in the same scenario where they actually studied how much is the competence once you obtain your degree. So as this graph shows that almost everyone is able to do native kidney biopsy, nearly 90% can do graft kidney biopsy, temporary HT catheter insertions is nearly 85%, but tunnel HT catheter insertion drops down to as low as around 15 to 20%. The percutaneous PD catheter insertion is around 50%. Renal ultrasound is again dropped down to around 20%. Ultrasound of vascular access is around 20 to 30%. That means these are four headings, the putting of a tunnel catheter, a percutaneous PD catheter, and doing ultrasound for yourself and ultrasound for vascular access, which you can easily learn and increase your horizon of practice so that you get more patients under these headings, and that in fact makes the entire system more uh, valuable and revenue generating. So that's easily possible, and probably that is the skill you may have to learn later because your teaching institute may not offer adequate time and the skill for development of these four headings. But of course, you can still learn once you pass out, and that definitely would help you in your practice. So that was the meaning of this particular graph. Now everything depends upon that before you embark into starting your practice, what's your priority and what are the options for your priorities. So one, you can become a full-timer, that is public sector or private sector, and everyone knows the pros and cons of each. In public sector, you get the X amount of pay, a very good academic atmosphere, you have too many juniors under you, you can dissipate your work, there's no excessive one person headed workload, and simultaneously you can do lot many other, you can concentrate on your time for more research, you can generate more papers. So that's a different life altogether, where of course you have to get satisfied with X amount of money which you get as working in the public sector. So there are pros and cons, but as this heading of our current presentation goes, that how to be a successful private practitioner, then actually we are mainly worried about how one would be successful in the private sector. So that of course we'll discuss in due course. Or you can even start as an independent setup for nephrology practice, or you can start your practice with a well-known setup which is available in your vicinity, such as a physician setup or oncology setup or a surgeon setup. You can get attachment to your charitable institute which are nearby. You can get attachment to your corporate hospital and then start practicing. You can yourself take the initiative in forming a small nursing home, which may be nephrology or a nephrology, urology, or a multi-specialty. Or lastly, you can even think of become an entrepreneur where you can establish a nursing home or a boutique hospital or 100-bedded unit or corporate hospital. And depending upon your dream, you can even go for chain of corporate hospital. You can become a dialysis provider company. You can start a pharmaceutical collaboration. You can have a distribution chain, pharmacy, lab. Those many headings are in fact there. We already have many people entered into these headings and being very successful, and they have in fact generated huge funds for themselves. So that's of course possible and not impossible. So everything depends upon in which heading you would like to go. But if I have to really concentrate on these three, that if you want to be a private practitioner, then always go for an independent setup for nephrology practice. Try to get at least one attachment to a corporate hospital which is nearby. Or, of course, if your okay, capability drives you towards entrepreneurship, certainly you can embark your entrepreneur work right from the beginning so that at one day you can be a successful entrepreneur. Now, why I'm asking you to start an independent setup of nephrology practice. Many of the new nephrologists who now particularly start practicing in one of the suburbs, they would either start with an available setup. Say, for example, a physician who's very well known, and he in fact has a good load of patients for himself. So you start thinking that, oh, I may also get at least the nephrology work from the hospital. But for you, you probably would be labeled as nephrologist of that physician. And there are another 20 physicians who are also interested in giving you work. They'll in fact always feel that if I now send the work to him, because he's attached to a particular physician, maybe my physician's work would be snatched away by him. And that is why you should not get labeled as a nephrologist of a physician or a nephrologist of a surgeon or a nephrologist of a particular unit. It's always better to start an independent setup, because then you are a nephrologist for everyone. It may be 150 square feet area, it may be 200 square feet area, it may be 250 square feet area. You have to put your board that I am so and so nephrologist practicing in so and so area. You need not have a lavish setup. You need not start with your dialysis unit to begin with, but at least one table and chair where you are announcing that I am now available as a nephrology practitioner in this suburb. And that, in fact, that is a lot of winning. Then, of course, as your practice grows, you can then think about a corporate attachment. I personally feel that there are then two types of corporate attachment. Some would go for full timer position in corporate attachment. Nothing wrong if your package is good. If you feel by working from 9 to 6, I am getting a good amount, which is say 10 lakh plus. Probably in the initial stage one may not get, but yes, as you establish in your practice, that sort of offer will come. So there's nothing wrong to become a private practitioner for a corporate hospital. Naturally, that has huge advantage. Many of these corporate hospitals have DNB program. Probably you'll have students under you. You can dissipate your work to your fellows and so on and so forth. And yes, they pay you well, certainly better than any other. And that is why a full-timer position in corporate attachment is, of course, if your package is good, one can almost jump on it. But if not, then you continue your independent private practice and at least get attachment to one corporate hospital. And of course, you should have other nephrology, urologists as a team, because then the working becomes better. And if you really have that entrepreneurship skill into you, naturally you can start planning for entrepreneur work, which could be a 100-bedded hospital or a corporate hospital itself, or a dialysis provider company, or any other distribution chain or whatnot. So basically, entrepreneurship is, of course, is the current need, because then you really multiply your assets faster. But it requires a teamwork. It requires similar people who are interested in this job, and you form a team. So of course it cannot be a one-man army, but if you're capable of forming a group, then it's always better to now enter into entrepreneurship. So that's how you should start looking at your own private practice. So it takes courage to leave a dream and bounce back up when you have been knocked down. Your dreams give you the energy and inspiration to live a great life. So always dream for big, because there's no harm in doing so. So then only you are likely to achieve your dream. And see, medicine, I always call it as an apprenticeship profession. You learn to be a doctor by studying doctors. What your medical school teaches you is the nephrology, the subject of nephrology. But when you actually come into private practice, like we all have gone through, we have role models. We used to always copy XYZ nephrologist who's doing very well in his private practice. We always used to feel ki what extra he gives to the patient, so that is so popular, apart from his knowledge and skill. And then that is how you try to imbibe those from your seniors, practicing colleagues, juniors also sometimes, and try to work on your shortcomings. Keep learning from there and you'll succeed. So keep your eyes open. See that if a particular patient left me and went to another doctor, what was my shortcoming? What did I do not do well so that my patient had to leave me and went to some other doctor? So it's always better to be open and keep revising those deficiencies again and again, and try to overcome them by changing them, learning more skill, and probably slowly and steadily you'll find that you are comfortable into your practice pattern. So let your actions be louder than your words and your dreams bigger than your fears. Start working to fulfill your dreams. Otherwise, someday someone will put you in work to fulfill their dreams. So that's very important that you actually keep imbibing your dreams and fulfilling them. Again, most important entity is what is your own mission, vision, and aim in life. Because that matters. Otherwise, whatever I'm speaking probably would be just theoretical. but what is exactly your priority? And everything cannot be your priority because your the direction of force is limited, and that is why you can only concentrate on few of these headings. So let's revise them. What is your aim in life? Want to gain name, recognition, and fame in society? Do you feel money is God and upliftment of your own financial and family's financial is of paramount importance to you? Or you want somewhat name and a good amount of money, achieve name as excellent academician? You want popularity as practicing nephrologist and popularity in patients, popularity as a speaker, popularity as a social influencer, connections with VIPs and politicians, popularity as activist of a foundation, charitable work, popularity, general population, media presence, recognized doctor at national or international level, popularity as a writer, want to publications, books, articles, newspapers, TV, media, etc. So naturally, probably one thought would come in your mind, oh, why not? One can achieve everything, but that's not possible because now if you start planning on certain headings, for example, somewhat name and money is extremely important. If you want this both the things together, naturally you have to work hard. You have to generate a good number of patients who earn money. And as you generate good number of patients and you do really well with those patients, your name will spread. That in fact requires nearly 12 to 16 hours of hard work initially, and then you can dissipate it over or form a group practice or then have multiple other healthcare professionals along with you. But that takes time. But initially, it's a real hard work. You want to have a name as excellent academician, then of course you have to actually, the most ideal position could be in a public sector, but of course in a corporate where there is a lot of good academic atmosphere or DNB program, and then start say doing some kind of research or generate your own papers, and soon your names will flash, in most of the journals or in most of the societies of nephrology, or you'll be called as a speaker in variety of platforms. So that's another journey, and that's why popularity as a speaker or a writer or an academician takes away a good number of hours of every day into that work, versus if you want money and name, then you have to basically literally run around to all your catchment areas, catch patients, and start say, generating your patient pool so that you get money as well as name in that particular segment. So that's how, unless you plan the heading, your force would be diffuse, and then probably you'll not achieve anything as one skill or one particular department being conquered upon. And that is why it is important to revise in your mind what's your mission, what's your vision, and what's your aim in life. Now, when you talk about the revenue model, what is the revenue which you collect from the patient as a nephrologist? So probably everyone will feel that it's my consultation fee, which either I get it from OPD or from indoor or for my reference work, or I do procedure, or there will be some dialysis revenue, or I get money from kidney transplant. So that's one aspect. But in fact, you'll be surprised to know there are multiple few other headings by which you can really earn money. For example, you can have your own pharmacy outlet. You can have your own lab. You can have your own ambulance service. You can have your own ultrasound machine. You can appoint a sonologist and he can do all the work for you. And you can have sharing model as 50-50. Some people have started food services for their dialysis patients, which you can call it as superfoods or healthy foods. You can even trade equipments, in your own pharmacy. You can have home care facility. You can generate few co-workers with you in the form of nurses or ward boys, that you can even carry out home care, because not many people are in home care. Many people require stress management. You can even catch hold of some psychiatrists or behavioral therapists, and you can start having a behavioral therapy outlet in your own clinic area. So the same patient probably would give you revenue at other headings also, and that is why your income will go up. So rather than just consultation or a dialysis or a transplant money, think about these headings which are feasible in your own locality, and slowly you'll find that there's a comfortable revenue generated in from all other headings. It's great important entity of networking, because in today's time you really do not otherwise be successful unless you have done a good networking. So wander, and you will wonder by response you get. So initially you can always afford to have a wandering practice. Hold and participate in CME listener catchment area. Often you get invitations, and then naturally our natural tendency, oh, again I have to spoil my Saturday or Sunday and then generate a lecture for GPs or okay, or physicians or whoever. But all that would really pay you off, because your name is always popularized amongst your own catchment area. As a initially good orator, naturally you get then patient referral. You do justice to those patients, you naturally get more and more patients from your catchment area. So good networking with even pharma representative, which I'll talk to you later, helps because actually these are the people who are likely to mediate your name into the adjacent zone because they are always wandering from one doctor to another doctor and they'll say, oh, XYZ nephrology are available, is really good, why don't you refer patients and so on. So that's again mutually beneficial program. You can even keep PROs, professional people who work as public relation officers, and they'll naturally go to different doctors to at least say that so and so doctor is available in your area. Find out your referral healthcare professionals, GPs, physicians, urologists, other specialists. Try meeting them. Of course, all that is a hard work. Either you have to do it on your weekends, spare some time every week, to and as you create your networking, that it's easy to get patients. Some people will actually do networking on social media. They can generate educational clips, videos, newsletters. Some people can even reach up to TV shows. But what is most important, which I always found cannot be neglected, is direct connection with patients. Okay? Because that is something, that popularity will always keep giving you patients. Even today, when you will probably assess your 20 patients in the OPD, you'll find that 10 patients have come simply because some other patients who were treated by you gave your name to them. And there may be another 10 could be referred from your catchment area. So slowly, your direct connection with patients actually generates practice nearly 80 to 90% of them. And that will naturally make you independent and not dependent on your catchment area or referral pattern. No, because that keeps changing. Tomorrow, if there are a few other nephrologists and few other doctors, maybe a GPs and physicians will feel okay, he's also available, start referring to them. But when it is direct connection with patients, that is something which can never vanish. And that's why I always pay attention to your direct connection with patients. So hold camps, hold screening programs for them. You can even have screening for their relatives, where you can screen for preventive nephrology, and of course patient education programs. If you periodically hold, naturally that carries more significance to them because the patient feels that you are something, uh, a different practitioner who is doing more than just treating the patient, and that name always spreads, and naturally you start getting patients from your catchment area just because they are referred by your treated patients. So that's important. So no harm in having a wandering practice initially. Initial zone could be around 15 to 20 kilometer. Some people also once in fortnight practice to the most distant area where there is paucity of nephrologists, and they go on once in fortnight weekends and see loads of patients. But that of course becomes a routine that forms a bridge from 500-kilometer to your house in Mumbai, because those patients, because the name has spread it, will keep coming to you, and you'll be surprised that in your day-to-day practice almost 20% patients have been referred from the most distant zone. And that is simply because once upon a time you used to go there and you have treated, and those practitioners there at least are aware of your name, and now they know you are practicing distantly, but yes, you were good and you treated them well, and that sort of patients will keep coming to you till you retire. So there is no harm in having a wandering practice initially. One more entity which we often neglect is the behavioral aspects for nephrologists, and that's extremely important. Need to always keep cool, never shout, abuse, get angry on patients, never scare patients by giving them accurate scientific data, yet not conceal the facts. And that's an art to learn. Now, for example, many people say, "Oh, your GFR is 10 ml, your kidneys are gone. Oh, you are already in stage 5B. Maybe your life is limited." So never scare them. Always explain to them that there are now good top type of dialysis centers available. The lifespan has certainly gone up. There's always a transplant which is possible. There are supportive drugs which have come up. So when you give them ray of hope, naturally they get energy, and then they feel, oh, something better is likely to happen once I'm treated by you. So that's extremely important. Always explain to them in layman's language and not confuse them with a lot of other complicated terminologies. Anyway, they are confused by Google Doctor. So to simplify, and sometimes we say, oh, then you go to Google and find out. No, rather their misconceptions can be clarified in your OPD consultation, because then they feel, oh, my most of the queries have been very well answered by them, and it's now clear to me that Google Doctor will often mislead me. But of course, if I have any query, even this doctor is available, for solving my question. So that's sort of an impression you have to create. You have to keep record because create your own MRD, medical record department, follow legal rules. That's extremely important, whether it is insurance, whether it is transplant, whether it is consumer or taxation. Be clear because these legal hassles will naturally put a big break in your overall development of practice. Your practice would be 100%. 60% yours and 40% bounce from other nephrologists who are defaulters in above mentioned aspects. So always remember that if you keep following these rules, you still get patients referred from other nephrologists and the patient themselves will come to you because they were defaulters in those headings. So that's how behavioral aspects of nephrologists should not be underestimated. Be compassionate with your subordinates, technicians, housekeeping, nursing staff, RMOs, PROs, front desk staff, because that goes a long way. Even all these areas, technicians, housekeeping, or front desk staff, they are actually people who would advertise your name. That so and so doctor is so well mannered, so well behaved. He really does well to the patient. Patients keep saying that he has treated them well. So all those would go a long way in your development of practice. Enhance your skill in your hobbies, spare time for music, read good non-academic books, develop your skill in sports, acting, cooking, bodybuilding, marathon, running, all you can develop. But of course, never carry with these headings. So many people will get carried away that they practice for 4 hours and then most of the time they go for enhancing their skill into other habits that of course would not really make a good impression in your practice. So it is like that. कुछ तो बात थी उसमें. अच्छा क्रिकेट खेलता था, कराओके सिंगर था, बोल बच्चन था, practice छोड़ के सब में बाप था. So that should not be the impression. You have to ultimately generate your practice and then keep doing well into practice. The trajectory of type and development of practice. This is just one thought, maybe based on my personal experience, that you become 29, 30, you become nephrologist. Age 30 to 33 years, probably you should get some more extra experience. Maybe you want to finish fellowship. 33 to 38 years, you should enter into private practice if you intend to do that. It could be local, wandering, corporate, whatever way. If you want to really become entrepreneur, then 39 to 43 is the right time to become entrepreneur. 45 to 50, you should think of good practice. Okay, then you should by now generated good skill in CMEs and orator so that you have been called upon for presentations more often, and that again gives you a satisfaction that or other, it also enhances your skill in that zone, and that's self-learning as well. By around 51 to 60 is the time where you can think about generating a foundation, be an active member of nephrology societies, and more than 60 should be the age where you should be able to do a stress-free, non-competitive practice at your terms. And that, of course, if you've gone through these headings well, a time would come where you'll be able to practice non-competitively, stress-free, because their finance is not the issue. You just have to continue practice because you like it. You can spend a good time in practicing. You have the knowledge to dissipate it. You have the good skill to manage your patients, and that's the reason you want to continue. But that should be at your own terms. So that's the age trajectory. Uh, if you want to develop these four models for your revenue purpose, yeah, that is how I divided into these four segments where you get your money from consultation, dialysis procedures, or transplant. But you should have these four options for yourself. On the left hand side, it's a premium charge model, which is probably corporate, premium, high quality, high facility clinic. But of course, volume would be low because not many people would afford that. Then low charge, like charitable foundation, where you generate high volume. Even that gives you a one source of income. On right hand side, up you have medium charge. That should be your own clinic. Your clinic should be noticed in such a way that yes, you are charging your clinic less than corporate. You're charging your clinic, giving probably more time because your basic aim is not to be dependent on corporate or charitable, but you should generate enough patient for yourself. Initially, it will become low volume, then probably you'll get moderate volume. But your aim should be that the facilities which you offer in your own clinic should be maximized so that the patient doesn't have to see you in corporate or in charitable. So that should be your plan. And of course, in the initial days, you can even charge a distant clinic, which I call it as, which may be fortnight basis, and that also generates moderate volume. So in Mumbai, suppose you plan once a fortnight visit to Lonavala. Okay, no harm. You'll probably see no time you get patients there, or someone who is in Pune goes to Satara, and again they generate practice there. So distant clinic once in blue moon, once in 15 days, once in a month, also would be an additional catchment area for you. So you try to develop these four types of models. Now again, volume wise, if you have a few patients in specialty clinic, that is the way the specialty clinic goes, that you cannot have patients which are like physicians. Probably you'll get 7, 8, 10, 15, 20 patients in your clinic. But as soon as you change the motto from rescue nephrologist to preventive nephrology, you'll find that a large population is coming to you. So now it's an era where you should develop your skill into preventive nephrology, because that's the time where you are likely to basically have lot of patients, and many more will come in future for preventive nephrology. So volume depends upon what heading you have created for yourself. So develop one extra skill of treating patients than others. Like you are best known for transplant or even dialysis expert. And dialysis expert means you know everything about machines, RO plant, consumables, disinfectors. You are good in procedures or interventional nephrology. You have some extra skill in managing dyselectrolytemia or critical care or hypertension or stone disease or peritoneal dialysis. Now, different aspects are coming up like onconephrology, behavioral aspects of CKD, palliative care nephrology. So if you do a little extra work in these segments and be known for that extra sort of skill, then actually you get those extra patients also. So a jack all trades is a master of none, but still better to be a master of one. That is a modified version when you say one extra skill in treating patients of nephrology. So coming back to the medical representatives' role in our life, in fact, this was a study which showed that how often doctors prefer to interact with pharma companies. You know, so 68% were once in every month, 27% twice a month, 5% 3 to 4 times a month. And how much time doctors wish to spend with each EMR. So 34% 5 minutes or less, 54% 5 to 10 minutes, 2% were more than 10 minutes. So that's the interaction between the medical doctor and the representative's relationship. In fact, there is something called as relationship marketing. You know, and what is the advantage of relationship marketing is you yourself learn about new molecules, you get reading material, you probably go for promotional activities which are actually supported by your pharmaceutical group, patient education programs, sponsorships, advertisement of your entrepreneur activities, junior nephrologists for group practice. Like suppose I am interested in getting a nephrologist, I even don't know who have come in my vicinity, but the medical representatives have the apt knowledge that so and so nephrologists have been added in one particular suburb. They are now next to you or whatever, and naturally it's an easy way to interact with them through them. Hold programs on what kidney day. Nephrology activities across the nation can be monitored, governed, supported, promoted by the medical representatives, and that's why they are actually of great help. So my in fact thought would be you should come in this 5%, which probably meets them 3 to 4 times a month, and give at least more than 10 minutes, which are just 2% population, and you'll get a good response, because your name, at least your profile, your personality is understood by them, and then they actually help you to enhance. It's just of their own interest, because if they enhance your practice somewhere, it's going to give them support as well, and that is how this is a mutually beneficial system. So do not downgrade the medical representatives. In fact, always try to associate with them, and you'll find good response from them in all your endeavors. So that's the concept. Now, how to impress upon your customer or patient, because ultimately they are the one who are going to spread your name. They are the one who are going to get satisfied from your treatment and so on. So first, give enough time for consultation. Never be in a hurry. No, you probably to really, even at your senior level, if you have to really see the profile how seniors are practicing, they give minimum 20 to 25 minutes at times. More senior you become, more differentials you have in your mind, and more conscious you are, because you don't want to miss a silly thing, and that is the reason you naturally automatically give more time for a consultation, and that pays off dividends, because then you don't miss anything, and then you in fact get the right concept of treating the patient. So that is why I give enough time for consultation. For first and foremost, as soon as your patient walks in your clinic, allay their anxiety. No, because there are too many thoughts in their mind. Probably the previous night they must not have slept. Someone must have told them that, oh, it's a permanent kidney damage, and now you go on dialysis, and maybe you require transplant, and n number of thoughts will crop up in their mind, and that naturally will create huge anxiety. And in fact, avoid terms sometimes we often unknowingly use, like death and dying. That of course should not be the communication with your patient at all. Also, some aspects of your time to nurse, dietitian, lab, or pharmacy, because we sometimes spend enough time in giving them details: who is the dietitian in your area, or who is the nurse who probably go for home care, or which is the best lab, and where is the pharmacy outlets. There should be some other people, maybe your receptionist, who is trained into all these four headings. They will take over, and they will give enough data, informatics to your patients. Most important, it is explain, explain, and explain till the layman gets satisfied. That's the only way to impress upon the patient. So keep informatics ready. If you don't want to explain, you have ready-made charts. Now there are, in fact, visual aids. You can have PDFs which are already into your computer. You can see on computer screen. But when you explain to them in a layman's term, they are most impressed upon. So they know that you have exactly understood their problem. Keep metamorphical ready for common nephrological issues like CKD is progressive, concept of GFR, donors concept, rise in creatinine. No, when you start giving them metamorphical example, yeah, that for example, you have limited petrol in your bike, and whatever, when you travel along this, a time would come where petrol will get finished. So similarly, CKD is progressive. Right now there is limited GFR. As it progresses, there will be a time to refill, okay, or do a transplant that time, or no, then probably you attach to your bike to another vehicle and drive that vehicle, like assistantship of another vehicle, that is dialysis. So in some metamorphical methods, you have to generate your details, because a layman would not understand all technicalities, and that is why they only understand the metamorphical examples. How to convince them for transplant? That's again a separate entity. Why some people do loads of transplants, something like they do nearly 100 transplant in a year, and the others are struggling. Both have them have same knowledge. The convincing power is something which differs, not the skill. And as you do more transplants and more better outcomes, naturally the patients will follow them. But initially, convincing matters, and convincing is an art for even transplant patient. So again, you have to allay the anxiety in the donor's mind that if you donate, nothing is going to happen. You get a complete compensatory enlargement of your remaining kidney. You don't lose any GFR because you have donated. There is enough data that after 30, 40, 50 years of donation also, there is nothing wrong gone with donor, and donors are the most safest in this entire program, and that has been looked after by science. So all those details would really help them to allay their anxiety, and they might come forward to donate. Dietary advice, again, rather than outsourcing to the dietitian, at least principles one should explain to the individual, because many times there's a blanket approach that, oh, it's CKD, give them low protein diet, but his albumin is 2, he's already malnourished, is cacaxic, so you'll not like to give them protein restriction. If you say, oh, diet ka mujhe mat puchna, you go to a dietitian. Probably that will be a wrong advice, because your individual assessment matters, and then you can say, this is the principle I would like to provide you the diet. The menu, certainly you can discuss with dietitian, because then what is to be eaten and what is not to be eaten. But the at least the dietary principles you can write it down on your paper. Make conversation lighter by humor. The most impressive entity in any conversation, especially between doctor and the patient, is humor. So wherever possible, you can lighter the atmosphere rather than being very serious doctor, which is actually giving only facts and figures, and you're not able to understand the lifestyle component of the individual. So unless you understand the lifestyle component, you will probably not be able to succeed in achieving those milestones like quitting smoking or alcohol, or allowing him to exercise, because he's a type A personality and never done that in life. And just because you are now explaining them in 3 minutes doesn't mean that he's going to have a complete changeover. So it is important to understand the lifestyle. What type of personality is he? Is he really going to follow a lifestyle modification? Where probably you like to go slow, go fast, and those things gradually, when the patients now are having a complete grip by you, then yes, that's a time where you can assess. But initially, of course, otherwise it will just go as a blanket advice, and probably they will not follow at all. Most important entity which doctor fail to do is the wealth management. This is the usual typical investment portfolio of a doctor, that he'll keep 5% cash, 30% into shares, 20% into mutual funds, 10% into gold, 25% into real estate, 10% into fixed deposits. Now, these are the usual approaches, but then the you have financial advisor, then he probably give the financial advice as per your requirement. 5 years down the line, you wanted to create a 100-bedded boutique hospital. You already invested your money for 8 or 10% returns, and now you take a loan for your boutique hospital, which is 14%. That doesn't make any sense. So, no, all those milestones you have to create into your financial journey. A financial advisor will certainly understand those, and they will give you a right understanding. Just like they are experts of wealth, they are the wealth doctors, and we are not, and that you have to appreciate and understand. And that is the reason a financial advisor at the right time would, in fact, be helpful. That how much is the cash flow pressure on you? What is the lack of financial knowledge which you have? You naturally have lack of time, so you naturally don't have the day-to-day understanding of the market fluctuations. You probably sometimes create too much of debt, lack of planning, complexities. These are all the observed entities in the doctor's life, and that is the reason a financial advisor will certainly help you. Now it's time to give back to society. You have done your practice, almost you are now 30 years into your practice. There are no financial goals which are unachieved. So that's the time now you can now think about having a foundation, a charitable trust. You can create some subsidized model to your patients, cheap medicines, or a cheap laboratory or consultations. You can now ask for donations. You can have free camps. You can have government recognitions for variety of activities that you can yourself generate now. Various government recognized dialysis centers are coming up. Ayushman Yojana is coming up. Mahatma Phule Yojana is there. You can generally take the initiative and help those getting established for your own patients, because down the 20 or 30 years of dialysis, they are now naturally going to get financially drained out, and they look for such alternatives. So that in fact would not minimize your practice, that will enhance your practice, because the patient would know that no, he is really one person who thinks about all the aspects, okay, of the patient, and it doesn't just give time and energy to the wealthier individual. And that sort of a impression in the society will naturally go a long way. Teach to juniors that you have learned. Teaching is the best way of learning yourself. So that these are all the methods you'll adopt, not probably in the beginning, but maybe by 50 or 55 plus era, you naturally can think of giving back to society, and that would naturally be important. It's one small step for man, but one giant leap for mankind, and that's why it is important that time to basically give back to society in whatever way you can. The last two slides are about group practice and work-life balance. Of course, there are going to be separate lectures on group practice and work-life balance. But just to know that what are the advantages and disadvantages of solo practice and group practice. When you have a solo practice, there is an increased autonomy to develop the practice as you wish, greater opportunity to develop close relationship with patients. But there are disadvantages. There will be burden of success relies solely on the solo practitioner, difficult to take vacations or spend time away from work. Small patient base leads to fewer referrals. Financial burden lies on the solo practitioner. Versus when you have a group practice, either it could be a single specialty practice or a multi-specialty practice. The advantages are there is a shared financial risk, greater flexibility of personal schedules, greater employee benefits, including group insurance rates. Disadvantages are reduced autonomy and decision-making ability, increased risk of conflict among partners, maybe more bureaucratic and policy driven. But of course, when you have the right group and everyone gels, mentally well, have similar portfolios and similar sort of aspirations, then it goes a very good way. And in fact, group practice is probably the practice of future. That is what I always felt, because that has more advantages than a solo practitioner. But of course, that takes time. You initially could be a solo practitioner, and that's why in my trajectory of time, I've kept it at something like 45 plus, where as the time advances, you grow older, you naturally become less energetic. You don't want to now run 120-kilometer every weekend. Then that is where your group practice would come at the rescue. And again, no group practice ever minimizes your revenue. They always would help you to enhance your revenue, and that's a little difficult entity to understand. But when you are into it, you'll realize that how group practice in fact helps you to generate more money than what you could do it as solo practitioner. So, and as the greatest advantage is your shared financial risk. Like for example, you create a unit which is say a 20 bedded unit. Naturally, at any best time, you'll only feel 20 beds filled up for yourself, and you'll get revenue also from 20 patients, because that is the limited setup you have. Versus go for a group practice and you have 120 bedded hospital where 12 people are managing. at any given time you have the capacity to even run 50% of patients there. So actually it enhances, you take more patients on dialysis because now you have 35 bedded dialysis center at your rescue. So a group practice has its own flavor, has its own advantages, and has its own revenue sharing model. And in fact, I personally feel that it will be better than even solo practice at some stage. And most important thing is the work-life balance. This is just a joke. I am afraid you will have to stay late tonight. I want you to attend this talk on work-life balance. So that itself shows that actually work-life balance is not easy. In fact, friends, health, life balance, career, family, you have too many of these entities which you have to balance, and that is equally sort of difficult for male as well as female. When you talk about the work-life balance for male, he has to think about revenue, homemaking, generating enough funds. Also has to plan his own exercise, has to plan his own diet, has his own health-related issues. Communication is constant because they are into active practice. So also with the female, these issues are of course there. Plus there are additional issues of parenting, then bringing up a child, and so on and so forth. So it's not easy to create a work-life balance for either male or female. But of course, it's a Herculean task which you have to overcome and yet be successful and manage all the headaches. And I'm sure there'll be some expert who will talk on work-life balance in due course of time. So finally, be a happy doctor and happy practicing. And I'm sure certain of these principles have been generated by my own experience and by fellow mates' experience. And I'm sure when you follow this pathway, it won't be a roller coaster, but it would certainly give you a sense of happiness. And that is all matters rather than the revenue or the name or the fame. Whatever journey you have as practitioner and that gives you happiness, then I think you have achieved your aim. Thank you very much.